Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In Surah Yasin, verse 20, Allah says, وَجَاءَ مِنْ أَقْصَى الْمَدِينَةِ رَجُلٌ يَسْعَى قَالَ يَا قَوْمِ اتَّبِعُوا الْمُرْسَلِينَ. And the translation of this verse is, and there came from the farthest end of the city a man running, and he said, O my people, follow the messengers. Now, a very common misperception that we often have is that we cannot talk about Islam or Quran until and unless we are a scholar or an alma. We need to have studied the complete tafsir, and then we just might be eligible to spread the message of Quran. In fact, this has become a common belief because whenever anyone talks about Quran, the first question he or she is asked is if he is a scholar or an alma. The truth is, becoming a scholar or an alma was never the precondition for talking about Quran or Islam. Yes, if you want to teach tafsir, then you should have sufficient knowledge of it. If you want to teach hadith, you should have sufficient knowledge of it. But if you want to just share something you've learned, or just talk about Quran or Islam, there is no obligation that you must have first studied the entire tafsir or that you must be highly qualified. In fact, the only important obligation is that you must verify the information that you are spreading or the thing that you are talking about. Make sure you do not say something about Islam, Quran, or Allah that is just not true. That's it. So do your homework and research. Make sure the knowledge you have acquired is from a credible source, and then share it. Now, in this regard, this verse of Surah Yasin is beautiful because it explains how some messengers were sent to a nation to warn it. The chiefs of that nation refused to pay heed to the warning, and they would threaten the messengers, telling them to stop talking about Tawheed, otherwise they would be harmed. Now, of course, this is a very common reaction that all messengers faced when they would have to address a nation. There's nothing new. But in this case, Allah mentions one important detail that makes this story stand out from the rest. In this case, a man is described as running towards the city from the farthest end. So clearly he was residing in the outskirts of the city, maybe some small village, and he is now running to the main city with only one message: follow the messengers. He doesn't seem to be riding on a horse or a camel, which might have made the journey easier for him, but clearly he doesn't have access to any such resource. All he has is his health, so he decides to run. Surprisingly, the Quran does not mention him as being a learned man, a scholar, a teacher. It doesn't even name him. But what it does depict is how desperate this man was to warn his people, so desperate that he came running all the way from the outskirts. What's even more surprising is that this man knew that the chiefs of the city were threatening to kill the messengers. So clearly, when he comes running to warn the chiefs and declares his support for the messengers, he will also be killed. That part is obvious. But it doesn't stop him. He is only passionate about supporting the messengers in their mission. So does he die? Yes, he does. But then the surah goes on to explain how he is honored by Allah for his shahadat. Now you can imagine nowadays if someone did that, we would first of all judge him for even talking about Islam. We would ask, does he have an Islamic degree? Has he studied the entire tafsir? What right does he have to talk about Islam? Then, after he died, we would pity him. We would wonder why he just didn't stay in the village practicing deen. Why did he even bother coming to the city when he knew he would be killed? That is how far our mindset is from the true Islam. That is how far we have deviated. Islam is about using whatever resources you have to convey the message you have learned. The man mentioned in the verse did not have complete knowledge of deen, but he did understand that if his heart has testified to the truth, then this is hadayat that Allah has given him. Now he will be held accountable for how he used that hadayat. Any information, knowledge, wisdom that Allah grants you is a liability. Pass it on using whatever means you have. Don't complain about the obstacles you will face. Don't complain about the fact that you don't have any resources. So remember, when you gain knowledge, first of all, verify that knowledge. Make sure it's accurate. Make sure it is not contradicting Islam or Quran. make sure it is from a credible source. And then, once you have verified it, use whatever means you have to spread that knowledge, because you will be held accountable about the knowledge or the wisdom that Allah has granted you. It is an asset, but it is also a liability. Assalamu alaikum.